Welcome to the Woman of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Dahl. I'm so glad to have you. Today we are going to be talking about how to make weight loss a process and not such a big, hairy goal or overwhelming goal. So we're going to be jumping into that in just a minute. But before I do, I want to remind you, we have a newsletter that is filled with deeper dives, more content, more strategy. An actual PDF from this episode is going to be in next week's or in this week's newsletter. So if you want to be part of the newsletter where you can get the extras, go to awomanofwellness.com/newsletter and I will send you every week the podcast plus additional things that you do not want to miss, tips to help you with your health and wellness and all of the above. So I'm really excited about that. Let's jump into the episode. Did that work? Let's try it again. Hello and welcome to the Woman of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, not your guest. Hello and welcome to the Hello and welcome to the Woman of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Dahl, and I'm here to help you achieve your best health as a woman of wellness. Today we're going to be talking about how to take weight loss from a big, overwhelming goal and turn it into a process. I'm excited to jump into this episode, but first I want to let you know, if you want to get exclusive, deeper dives from the podcast, welcome to the Woman of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Dahl, and this podcast exists to help you become your best, achieve your best health, and live the lifestyle of the woman of wellness that you want to become. We're going to be talking today all about how to turn weight loss from this big, overwhelming goal into a very simple step-by-step process. Before we dive in, I want to remind you, if you are not on our newsletter, you need to be. In fact, from this episode today, I will be sending out to my email newsletter a handout that goes specifically with this podcast episode today. And that is what you can expect every week. We go deeper dives, more tips, free downloads, more support for your health and wellness journey. As long as you're on the newsletter, it's totally free and you get it every Wednesday. All you have to do is go to awomanofwellness.com/newsletter to join and get all of the goods. I also am excited. Let's jump into the episode now. I want to make the action of weight loss really simple for you today. Instead of seeing it as that big, hairy, audacious goal, what if we looked at it as a step-by-step process? Because the reality of weight loss is that there are certain habits that prove weight loss works time and time again. And regardless of what diets you've been on or plans you've been on, there have been some consistencies among them. Can you think of that for a minute? So I just want you to think of any plans that you've been on, any diet programs, any weight loss plans that you have followed. What has been consistent? Well, we know that we need some sort of consistency with a nutrition plan, right? With nutrition. We need some sort of consistency with movement. And we have to do it in such a way that helps our body create change. Okay? So before we jump into the nitty-gritty, I always like to look big picture. Okay? Take a minute to look big picture. What is your big picture weight loss goal? And what do I mean by this question? What does it look like when you have achieved that goal? What do you look like? What do you feel like? And most importantly, what does your lifestyle look like? Because what happens sometimes is we can see this big picture and it feels really overwhelming to think about. And so it's important that we have the big picture, right? Because we have to know what we're working toward. We can't just, as you know from lots of popular diets, you can't just change your diet for 30 days and then expect that everything's going to stay the same. We have to create habits that you're able to implement into your life. So my goal today on this podcast is to help you get started on the very specific habits that are going to be the most bang for your buck when it comes to weight loss specifically, or body change. Okay, so we've got our big picture goal. What do those habits look like? Now, you need to break your habits down into 3 areas. Okay, 3 areas. 1, regular movement. 2, consistent nutrition. And 3, whole body support. Let's talk about each one of these. In order for your body to lose weight and maintain a particular weight, it needs to have a working metabolism, basically. And if we enter a diet without movement as part of it, then what happens is we drop those calories, and our body responds in the same way. Oh, you're feeding me less calories, I need to burn less calories. So it does not matter what the movement is. Let me repeat that. It does not matter what the movement is. The movement that you will do is the movement that is the most important for right now. Okay? I am a big advocate for women's strength training, especially in aging. Yes, do I think strength training is important? Do I think different methods and modalities of exercise are important? Yes, okay, they are. But we can't get lost in the weeds. We just need to say, how can I get some more movement into my life? That's the first thing. And if it's strength training, great. If it's a daily walk, great. But we have to start getting into the mindset of this woman of wellness who has this goal is someone that incorporates regular movement into her life. And it doesn't have to look the same on day 1 as it does on day 900. How many years is that? That's way too long. On day, well, actually, no, that's what, 3, that's not too bad. Anyway, it doesn't have to look the same. So start messy. What's the lowest barrier of entry for you? What I like to say is, what's the lowest activation energy for you? What's going to take the least amount of energy to get started? And for me, it would be walking out the door and going on a walk, right? It might take a little bit more effort for me to wake up earlier and go to the gym and lift weights and have a plan, right? That feels overwhelming. So get rid of the overwhelm, insert focus, and say, what will I most likely do right now? On a scale of 1 to 10, I feel 8 to 10 confident that I can do this today without any questions, without worrying if I'm doing it right or not right. That's the first thing. And we can adjust as we go, okay? I think sometimes I am so guilty of this. I'm so guilty of this, that sometimes we try to figure the end answer out when we're just getting started. We're trying to put all the pieces together. Oh, I'm just thinking out loud, like, oh, I'm so guilty of this, where I try to put all the pieces in place before I even get one piece in place. And we all know how that goes, right? It also really hurts our brain. So I'm giving you permission. In fact, give yourself permission to simplify and focus on one particular habit at a time and make that habit simple. That's the first thing. Start with regular movement. The second thing, this is kind of in order of complexity, I guess, or Difficulty, although I don't want to use the word difficulty, but in order of the energy that it requires to maintain it. The second one is consistent nutrition. We have to eat consistently. And diets do not teach you to do that, right? They don't teach you to do that. They teach you to avoid foods, skip foods, and get into a place where you're starving and then you overeat. We want to find some consistency with your eating habits. And my message is loud and clear that the more mindful you are with your eating, the more consistent you will be with your nutrition. We start with mindfulness and we add the macro balance. Okay? Start by being mindful. Eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner. Listen to your body. Listen to what it feels like to be hungry, to be full, to be satisfied. Don't get rid of the labels on food for right now, okay? We are working to create a balance with all food. And it's important that we feel comfortable being able to eat food, because if we don't, we're going to restrict and binge and restrict and binge, and we're going to get in that cycle. So here's my suggestion for number 2. Try your best to set up a meal nutritiously for yourself, okay? In my programs, I teach all about how to keep your nutrition macro balanced and what it looks like without tracking and all of that. But for the simplicity of the podcast today, and if you're just getting started or you're feeling overwhelmed and it's too much to try to do at once, here's what I want you to do. Choose your meals, make them as nutritious as possible, and then sit down for at least 10 minutes at this meal and listen to your body and listen to what it feels like to eat the food, enjoy the food, what fulfills you, what satisfies you, and listen to your body. When you can do that, you can be consistent with your nutrition. And then we can start, I guess making it a little bit more complex with making sure we're getting the right balance of proteins and carbs and fats and all of that will help you thrive even more and help your body kind of kickstart and kick into gear for weight loss. But we've got to start there. We've got to learn how to be mindful. If we're not, we go back to the binge and restrict cycle again, right? Number 3, Number 3 is whole body support. Okay? This is kind of a big picture here. But if your body is not getting rest and recovery, and you're running in fight or flight all the time, which I know that feeling very well, so you're not alone if you are. You are not alone. If you are running in fight or flight all the time, your body will not be able to lose the weight that it needs. It will hang on to it. Because we have hormones that say, we're going to go work for that, right? We've got to manage this. And your body's in this fight or flight mode. And with weight loss specifically, we end up in a bit of a restriction mode anyway, right? We're already pulling resources from our body because we're in a negative calorie deficit. Is that an oxymoron? Or not? That's not the right word. Yeah. Negative calorie deficit. We're in a calorie deficit. We're already in a calorie deficit, right? And so we're already pulling resources from our body. If you are pulling more resources and then we're trying to come in and say, hey, let's pull more resources for weight loss, it's just going to fall apart, right? And it's not going to work very well for us. Our body's going to hold on. Cortisol is going to hold on to that and not release it. So some simple things to do. Look at your sleep. How are you sleeping? Is there a way you could get more consistent sleep? I have a 1-year-old. She does pretty good, I will admit. But some nights I don't get perfect sleep. I also have a husband who tosses and turns in his sleep a lot. And, sometimes I don't get 100% great sleep. And I have to work on that, right? And so, but sleep is a priority for me. And if you're overwhelmed and stressed, what can you do to eliminate some of that stress? We have to look at it from a very holistic, whole body approach here. And if you are focused on 14,000 other things, I want to suggest that weight loss not be added to your plate, because it does require some effort. It requires some attention. And when your attention is in all these different places, then it's really hard to focus in on that. However, I want to say this one thing. Your body and the care and nurture of your body should always, always have your attention. And it should always take your time, because it is worth the time it takes to nourish your body to then show up for the life that you want to show up for. So forget about weight loss for a minute if that's too much, but how can you also bring in this idea of supporting your body through those 3 steps? Regular movement, right? It's just going to look a little different with weight loss, but we should still have a regular movement pattern in place, right? Consistent nutrition, whole body support. Your body is worthy of all of these things because it's how it shows up in its best way. And from there, we can step into change, if that means weight loss or whatever that looks like for you. Okay, so I've given you the 3 habits that need to be implemented to help you create weight loss specifically and just general health and wellness. Here's where we simplify it. And I don't want you to push back on this because it's really important. Pick one area to focus on at first. And I suggest movement be the first because it's the simplest one to add in typically. Because it's just something you can go and do quickly, right? Putting meals together, sometimes that can feel a little overwhelming. Or maybe for you, it could be, I need to get more sleep. Or I need to get into a more mindful routine. A few years ago, I was in fight or flight mode. I can't even explain it. It was just so much. And I got to a point where I had to take a nap every day. I was like so exhausted. Anyway, I found this yoga nidra. In fact, I'm going to share it on the newsletter this week. So that's another plug to go get on the newsletter. But I found this yoga nidra meditation where you lay down and it helps you kind of like relax your body, and it usually puts you to sleep. Like it kind of helps you take a little nap. And I did that every day for months and let my body recover. And now I do it occasionally when I feel like I need it, but I don't need it all the time. That was one habit that I worked on because my body needed to recover. And then other things started to fall into place. I was able to take on more. So don't get discouraged or feel like one thing isn't enough, because it is. One thing usually begets another thing, right? If you think about it, when you, let's just start on the opposite end. When you eat yucky food, you feel yucky, so then you want to eat yuckier food, right? Like, oh, I just don't feel good, so then I eat more donuts or whatever. Well, it's the same thing. When I am feeling better, I want to do better. I want to take better care of my body. So then it begets more things to do. Like I want to do more of these things. And that's the power of simplifying and focusing on one habit. Okay? So here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick one area of the 3 that we talked about and pick one habit to work on for 30 days, for 1 month. In fact, if you were here and I could see you on the screen, and I had a screen, I would write out all the months of the year in the calendar version, and I would show you what it looks like if you were to, I want you to visualize this with me. In January, write out all your goals and start working on everything in January, and by March they'd be gone. But if you did one of those things in January, and one of those things in February, and one of those things in March, by December you'd have so many new habits and you'd be in such a different place. That's the power, again, of habits. So, if you're on my newsletter, I'm going to send you my habit tracker. Make sure you get on there. It's in the show notes. But pick one area and track it and share it with me. Please come share with me on Instagram or respond to the email. I'd love to know what you are working on. I'd love to be your accountability. partner, whatever. Get it with your girlfriends. Have them listen to this episode. You guys can do it together. The power is there. And in fact, if you are on YouTube, I'm going to show you mine because this is something, and again, I do have the podcast on YouTube, but this is my habit tracker that I used when I was having a little bit of a hard time being consistent with exercise. And I've saved it because it helped me get back into a habit of exercise. And I didn't have to keep going. I just had to commit to it for 30 days and kind of track it. And then it just helped me get back in. And that's the goal, right? We're not looking to track our habits for years on end. We're trying to learn to track them, see what's going on, and help us get into the habit of it. So it doesn't become another thing, it becomes part of our lifestyle. So I'm going to send this in the email. If you're on YouTube, you can also kind of see it. It's going to look a little bit different than this, but it's pretty similar. Okay? How are we feeling? How are we feeling right now? Again, if you want a tip, go easiest to more challenging. Okay? I would recommend either starting with something very simple like a sleep routine or a stress management. I'll share that Yoga Nidra. I should probably write that down because I might forget. I'll share that in the newsletter this week. And then, so pick something that you can do. And if you want someone to tell you what to do, I'm going to say start with movement. Okay, start with some form of movement. I don't care how many minutes it is. The goal is to get in the mindset. Okay? And then, if you're maybe ready, you can jump into nutrition. Or maybe you find that this habit starts, it's okay to bring in some nutrition habits and goals and like, hey, I want to try this, but we're not specifically tracking it and staying right on top of it, but it makes sense. It's kind of like the ripple effect. You put the rock in the water and it ripples. Well, when you start implementing some healthy habits, it ripples into things. Okay? So, remember these things. Start simple. Make mindful eating part of your foundation. This is really important. Okay? I shared last week. Oh, I have so many things to share. I'm so excited. We are going to have a masterclass vault. I have so many masterclasses that I've taught, so many helpful things, and I have one in there that will help you master nutrition for weight loss. So utilizing nutrition for weight loss. The masterclass vault is hopefully coming in February. If you want to get on the wait list, you can go to awomanofwellness.com/masterclass. And I'll let you know all the details. If you're on my newsletter, you'll hear about it, so you'll be just fine. But if you want to go deeper, I will have that training in there. Okay, before I sign off, we need to talk about mindset. Okay? Oh, mindset. The hardest part of any habit is the beginning. It's the beginning. Okay? Because here's what happens. We go to the gym and we're desperate to lose weight and we get on the scale or we fill our pants and we're like, my pants aren't fitting any looser today. I went to the gym once. And I am totally guilty of this myself, so I am not going to say you are not alone, okay? We want to see some change because, gosh darn it, we showed up at the gym. Or we made that change with our nutrition. Change takes time, okay? Don't focus on the outcome from the beginning. Put the goal there. I want to lose weight. I want to change my body. But focus on the now. Focus on how it feels to make choices in the moment. And if you need a simple reminder or a phrase, just say, today I choose to nourish my body by doing this. This is how I'm nourishing my body in the moment. It's okay to have that big goal. But we don't need to focus on it all the time. We need to focus on the choices that we're making now, because the choices that we make now are what determine that big picture goal. Okay? You're aligning with that big picture goal, and ultimately through this weight loss process that I shared today, you're going to start very simple with your body will respond. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. If you are consistent with the process, your body will respond. But we forget there's another part of the equation that we try to skip. And math, you can't skip equations, right? Time. Time is part of the equation, and it's a very important part, and it changes and it's different, right? It's a variable, but it's the one thing that leads you to the answer, leads you to the outcome. Okay, thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope that was a really good episode. I felt the energy. I hope you felt the energy. Get on the newsletter so that I can make sure you have what you need to get started on your habit. If you have a lot of stress in your life, I'm going to include that meditation as well. And I'll be back next week with another episode.